Welcome, everybody. I'm going to just allow everybody a minute or two to enter the room, and then we will begin in about a minute's time. Thanks for joining us. As I see people still coming in. We will begin in just a minute. Thanks for spending an hour with us this afternoon or morning if you're on the West Coast. Okay. Again, welcome to NADSP's webinar, Statewide Certification, Insights from the New York, Georgia, and Tennessee pilot programs. My name's Joe Macbeth. I'm the President and CEO at the National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals. A few things before we get started this afternoon, and before anybody asks, the webinar will be recorded, and all attendees will receive the recording and a PDF of the PowerPoint presentation. To access our interpreters, and thank you to our interpreters, please enable interpretation mode. Please note that we will allow time for questions at the end of today's presentation. We invite you to submit any questions via the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Also, please note that for any specific research or data questions that you must contact the state or the research teams directly. This webinar is focused on 3 states that used ARPA funds to address long-term and systemic workforce issues. 2 of these states, New York and Georgia, funded other interventions beyond the NADSP's eBadge Academy. For example, Georgia provided 2 other options for certification and apprenticeship that were also evaluated, and New York funded a provider technical assistance project with the New York Alliance for Inclusion and Innovation. But we can only speak to the results of the eBadge Academy, and we encourage you to read the reports and consider all available options that might be helpful in addressing your specific workforce issues. Clearly, there is not only one solution to this decades-long systemic failure of our workforce. The evaluation process from Georgia, New York, and Tennessee provided us with a whole lot of information, and today, we're doing our part to share our interpretation with you. And while we're at it, I think it's important that we call attention to a couple of other states with statewide initiatives that have partnered with NADSP by offering certification pathways through the eBadge Academy, and we invite you to contact us and we can put you in touch with them. Alaska, our friends from Alaska, has a statewide certification program housed at the University of Alaska Anchorage's Center for Human Development. And that program is unique. All of these are actually pretty unique and implemented differently. Hawaii has a statewide certification program operated by the Research Corporation of the University of Hawaii. Montana's Department of Public Health and Human Services is currently operating a certification pilot in the great state of Montana. And we would be remiss if we didn't mention the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has incorporated NADSP certification into their performance-based contracting model. Nearly 10,000 direct support professionals have received certifications through the eBadge Academy within the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That particular model is very decentralized, and if you want more information about the Pennsylvania model, please feel free to reach out to us. Finally, I really want to thank our state partners, our program evaluators, provider organizations, and most importantly, the thousands of direct support professionals who accepted the challenge and blazed a new trail for the workforce. The cooperation and the troubleshooting and the flexibility among all of the partners was an incredible experience for us at the NADSP. So I want to make clear about all of that stuff. This is not the only answer. This is not the only certification program, but this is the only one that we could talk about. Our agenda for today: welcome introductions. I'm going to give a brief overview for those of you who are not as familiar with the eBadge Academy as others may be. And then we're going to get right into the 3 states evaluation. And we broke it into 4 parts: program implementation, experience and satisfaction, workforce outcomes, future implementation, and then, if we have time, and I hope that we do, discussion, questions, and answers. So that's what we hope to accomplish in the next hour. And let me just give you a little brief background of the eBadge Academy. It allows direct support professionals and frontline supervisors to work towards a certification gradually and when time permits. It is typically a months-long process rather than a one-time event. And of course, everybody proceeds differently at a different rate, different time. It's based on an individual user's experience. It is not a training program. There are training requirements for certification, but that training happens elsewhere. We do want to see your training records, but there is no training in the eBadge Academy. It is typically an incumbent worker certification and not a pre-service certification. eBadge Academy users have existing experience that they reflect on. Now, there are high school pipelines, community college programs that offer students internships in local provider organizations, and they can proceed typically to level 1 of certification. But their pathway, as Dan Hermreck always says, is a little bit more complicated because you do need experience working with people directly. And from those experiences, you complete your testimonials to earn badges. The NADSP's eBadge Academy is based on the application of knowledge, your training, skills, these CMS core competency areas, and usually the values, the reflection of the code of ethics, and that's the values. It is the confluence of all 3, and we look at all 3 of those in the eBadge Academy. Applying for we're always asked, how long does it take me to earn a badge? Well, you know what? It depends. Typically, a badge should not take more than 15 minutes. The work is already done. What we're asking you to do is to reflect on that work and put it in a document or an audio file and share it with us, and then answering 2 different prompts. Okay, we launched this eBadge Academy in January of 2019. It replaced a portfolio-based certification program that NADSP had for several years, and we had maybe dozens of DSPs earning those certifications. It was intimidating for DSPs and time-consuming, and it was just not scalable. In 2026, currently, we have more than 11,000 unique monthly users in the eBadge Academy. These are DSPs and frontline supervisors who are actively engaged in sharing testimonials and earning badges. Currently, there's over 1,000 local administrators, and I know my co-presenters are going to be talking about the role of these local administrators. They are the NADSP's liaisons at the organizational level, who supports DSPs throughout the process, who helps DSPs when they struggle, who provides information to DSPs when they need it, And they're really the champion at the organizational level, and they are crucial to the success of the eBadge Academy in an organization. As of today, we have nearly 700 organizations participating in the eBadge Academy from 40 states and one Canadian province. Thank you, Chilliwack in British Columbia. And in 2026, and this is a kind of a moving number, but on average, I've been seeing about 20,000 eBadge testimonials a month that are being reviewed by NADSP's review teams. That's a lot of eBadges coming in. Since we launched, our eBadge reviewers have reviewed nearly 600,000 submissions, 600,000 testimonials of DSP's work. And of course, not all of them are going to earn a badge. About 28% of them do not. So we've denied submissions, and I'm an eBadge reviewer myself. I provide feedback whenever there's a denial and try to redirect those DSPs when they need it. We are approving submissions around 72%, and that number has been holding steady, and Dan might be able to provide more information about this later. 72% has been pretty consistent over the last 6 or 7 years. And then finally, since we've launched, we have awarded more than 24,000 certifications across the country. And I'm hoping today, since I got these numbers yesterday, that we have achieved 4,000 DSP level 3s, because 3,999 is a good number, but 4,000 is better. So that's the table setting I wanted to do with you. Let's get at it, shall we? I want to introduce my colleagues from the NADSP, all three of whom have worked closely with New York, Georgia, and Tennessee. Kathy Brown, who is our regional manager of the eBadge Academy operations. Kathy works with the New York State Office for People with Developmental Disabilities and the SUNY system, the State University of New York, who have a micro-credentialing pilot project. And this was a big lift. We planned this New York pilot for a couple of years, and we made several mid-course corrections throughout the time, and Kathy's going to talk about that. So welcome, Kathy. Dan Hermreck is going to be speaking on behalf of the great state of Georgia. We had a really unique partnership with UCP of Georgia and Diane Willish, who was our boots on the ground in Georgia. And Dan will be sharing the Georgia experience. And then nobody better than sharing the Tennessee experience than Susan Arwood, our Director of Certification, a resident of Northeast Tennessee, who has been working with TennCare and the managed care organizations and the many provider organizations in the state of Tennessee. So Kathy, Dan, Susan, welcome and thank you for joining us. Let's get it started. So the first one we want to talk about is program implementation. And one of the things that I've learned in talking with other states that may want to come into a pilot project is every state has a different vision. Every state has a different idea of how they want it to work. And we try to be as flexible as possible. But Kathy, why don't you share with us how program implementation happened in New York State?
Of course. Thanks, Joe. Hello, everyone. So glad you could be here with us. I'm really excited to be able to talk about this project. So for New York specifically, collaboration between OPWDD and NADSP establishing a program that went from 2022 through 2025. It was a statewide initiative. So provider organizations under the OPWDD umbrella could participate in the program. And we did send out and do RFPs for people to apply so we could ensure that they could meet the criteria so their team could be successful. And it In the first pilot, we finally had 44 providers from all different parts of the state. And we also brought in the New York State operation employees, which is a large number of employees as well. And part of the process was that NADSP would provide full-time support, that would be me, to work directly with the local admins. Joe mentioned them before. The people who are the liaisons from the organizations right within the organization. I work directly with each and every one of them to establish their teams, to train them in the eBadge Academy so they could support their team members, and to set up the whole system for them. It was very successful. And the local admins, as we said, is critical. We allowed each organization the opportunity to select the people who would participate in the way that they felt best. As Joe said, it's very unique. Each provider organization is unique, and how this program can be rolled out, we don't dictate it. We just do a lot of supporting. So in most cases, they would pick employees who were of good standing, supervisor approval. But one thing that we know, and it was proven in our evaluation done by the University of Minnesota, that there really has to be buy-in on the executive level and on all levels within the organization for this to be successful. So we work directly with the executives as well. NADSP, in partnership with OPWDD, provided tech supports, which as we went along, whenever you roll out something new, you learn as you go. And we certainly shifted gears a couple of times in response to best support the DSPs. And OPWDD created this incredible dashboard to collect data to help support all of the local admins to keep the progress monitoring going. Dan, turn it over to you.
Thanks, Kathy. So the Georgia pilot, again, as Joe mentioned earlier, we were one of 3 models that was tested in that Georgia pilot. The others were an exam-based certification and an apprenticeship program. Again, we can only talk about our experience with our model. We had 10 participating organizations, and each had 20 seats in the eBadge Academy available to them, which meant that there were a total of 200 participants statewide. The initial focus in Georgia was to get people to that DSP-1 level of certification. And we had, I think, what is probably the largest bonus ever paid to DSPs for a DSP-1 certification in Georgia. It was $6,200, and that number was set because they wanted the net pay that DSPs saw in their paycheck to be about $5,000, even after all the withholding was taken out. Additionally, there was a $5,000 payment made to the agency for each certification, and that was to, certainly incentivize and fund the infrastructure needed for organizations to support DSPs through this process. Now, later, some additional funding did become available, and we were able to pay smaller bonuses of about $1,000 for those DSPs who went on past DSP-1 to get the DSP-2 and DSP-3 certifications. And you'll see the numbers later, but I'm very pleased that even with those smaller bonuses, a lot of DSPs, once they had earned DSP-1, wanted to stay in the program, wanted to keep going, even though the bonuses were not quite as significant. All of these organizations used Relias to provide the accredited education hours that were required for our certification. 50 hours are required for level 1, 100 hours are required for level 2. Relias has something like 350 different modules that NADSP has accredited. And so there's a lot of flexibility in terms of where you get those training hours. Organizations could sort of pick the modules that were the best fit for their DSPs and the people they're supporting. I'm going to throw it over to Susan to tell us about Tennessee.
And before I do that, Dan, I just wanted to make a comment that a $6,200 bonus is a very strong incentive for direct support professionals to achieve certifications. And the $5,000 payment to the agency is also a nice carrot for organizations to buy in. Would you agree to that?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things we hear across the country is the bonus is what gets people into the program. And then once they're in the program, it's the experience they're having that keeps them motivated.
Yeah. And were the other 2 models the $6,200 for the same?
I believe that was universal, yes.
Okay, it would make sense that it would be. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Susan.
All right, thank you. I have a rather unique perspective on Tennessee's workforce development efforts because up until a little over a year ago, I was an executive director for a provider organization in Tennessee and had the opportunity to participate in the eBadge initiative. Today, I serve as director of certification for NADSP, and one of the reasons I came to NADSP was because of the good experience I had with the Tennessee program. Today, I've experienced NADSP's eBadge Academy from both the provider perspective and from the NADSP side. So I really feel like Tennessee should be commended for its longstanding investment in workforce development, including its commitment to professional certification that was happening even before the partnership with EBA. The state has a clear and consistent commitment to professionalizing the direct support professional workforce. This is the second year Tennessee has partnered with NADSP to offer the eBadge Academy to DSPs and FLS in Tennessee. The 2025-2026 contract year is significant because it's the first year the program has been fully funded in TennCare's budget, and the funding reflects, again, a major commitment to professional development of DSPs. The goal of the TennCare eBadge Academy program was to improve retention, increase job satisfaction, and strengthen long-term career commitment among DSPs and FLS in Tennessee. TennCare also offers some very meaningful financial incentives for both certified professionals and the provider organization. A DSP who completes all three certification levels can earn up to $4,150, and the provider organization can earn up to $1,500. TennCare also pays for the EBA seats and allocates them out to participating organizations, which again is a very nice benefit. A unique feature of the Tennessee model is the role of the three major managed care organizations in Tennessee. The MCOs recruit new provider organizations, manage seat allotments, help train, and collect data needed for the incentive payments. NADSP and MCOs have been working very closely together to support participating organizations and the local administrations throughout the process. So I'll turn it back over to you, Joe.
Thanks, Susan. And so Tennessee is the only state where managed care organizations are a partner in the eBadge Academy certification process. The other two states did not have MCOs as part of it. But I think in terms of implementation and the consistency of implementation, all three states saw that it was important to incentivize the providers as well, and again, to get the provider buy-in. And meaningful stipends or bonuses for direct support professionals. Now, because it was ARPA funds, it was temporary money. Bonuses fit into a temporary type of business model. Ideally, and in the future, and I hope we talk about this in the future, is trying to incorporate hourly wage increases for certifications, tied to certifications, because it's my belief that that would incentivize tenure with DSPs. But we'll see what happens, right? The next one is, and this is through, and I should also mention that both Georgia and New York were evaluated by the Institute on Community Integration at the University of Minnesota, and TennCare did their own evaluation. And this section is really interesting to me. The experience and the satisfaction of typically the end users is what really interests me. So, Kathy, I'm going to start with you.
Thank you, Joe. I just wanted to mention, thank you for talking about the incentives. I forgot to mention before that in New York, through the pilot program with OPWDD, there was a bonus structure, bonuses for DSP 1, 2, 3, and frontline supervisor, as well as training reimbursements to the organizations that participated. And that definitely was motivation. also the certification seats that we call them in the eBadge Academy was totally funded through the pilot. This is probably my happiest moments in terms of talking about this program, because the experience and satisfaction, this is what I like to say NADSP always has believed, but University of Minnesota has now proven and validated. There is such a high satisfaction there was in terms of the participants, 94% among the DSPs and frontline supervisors, and that's based on the evaluation. They reported stronger skills, confidence in their work, and professional identity. And I just want to take a moment to pause on that, because having been a DSP myself and working in this field for decades, this is a tremendous thing to be able to collect the data on. And for DSPs to express this about themselves is so critically important. The reflection through the testimonial writings that Joe mentioned before, it was highly valued. One of the things that we noted in terms of the DSPs, and these evaluations were done through surveys, interviews directly with the DSPs and the local admins, as well as leadership. The testimonial writing was valued. The DSPs felt that it was relevant to their day-to-day work. We also know how important that is, because oftentimes DSPs do not feel that way about something that they've been asked to do, but they felt that this process really was quite relevant. Of course, they expressed occasional frustration. Joe mentioned the badge denials before, but I just want to add, denial means try again, try again. No one fails. No one fails this. DSPs have expressed that they don't like to be denied, but honestly, none of us do. But we really do give suggestions, and as we like to call them, breadcrumbs, what to do. And as they move along, we've seen it across the board. As they progress, less and less and less in the denials and more approvals in their badge submissions. Along the way, as I had said earlier, we learn, and we've learned from feedback. We really worked throughout that 3-year process to ensure our reviewer consistency. We added to our reviewer pool of reviewers who are NADSP staff members to make sure that we are consistent in our responses, whether they are approval or denials, but also in the guidance and the feedback that is provided. And we have gotten feedback, and it was through the evaluation that improvement made a difference for the DSPs. In terms of organizational satisfaction, over 80% of the local admins and executive leadership said that they were satisfied, if not very satisfied. Again, this is data from the University of Minnesota. We know that 80% is a very high statistic for anyone to say that they were satisfied or very satisfied with a pilot program. The financial incentives were definitely appreciated. No one ever said, oh, I don't want a bonus. Let's be fair. The bonuses are great, but as Joe said, that it is a one-off. And wage increases that were tied to certifications, which was a voluntary action on the terms of some of the provider organizations, made a tremendous difference for the DSPs in terms of their being recognized as the professionals and what this certification meant for them in their career. We will say that the local admins, as we mentioned before, are critical to this process. They are the liaisons in the organization. They understand the organization's culture, and I would work directly with them. But oftentimes, this is on top of their other job responsibilities in their org. And it could be very difficult. And to be quite honest, going back to the support and buy-in from executive leadership, the more we saw of that and the support to the local admins, the more successful this program was across the board for everyone. So I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah,
sorry, Joe, go ahead.
No, I don't think we can express how important agency buy-in correlates with DSP success in certifications. I know there was times throughout this pilot where I would send emails to the agency executives, encouraging them to recognize their DSPs more than the bonuses that were funded through ARPA and passed through OPWDD. But I think towards the end, you saw so much momentum from the organizations and the partnership between the state office, SUNY, the provider organizations, and NADSP. That last quarter of the pilot was just so intense. It was just so intense and very successful too, by the way. So thank you, Kathy. Dan,
Thank you.
Georgia.
So in Georgia, we had some similar results. DSPs that were credentialed were overwhelmingly reporting that they felt stronger in their skills, their confidence in their work, and again, their professional identity. Most DSPs were satisfied with their experience in the eBadge Academy pilot, 87%. DSPs reported their relationship with their local program administrator, their local admin, as we call them, was crucial. And we know that. We've seen that in states all over the country. That local champion, that local point of contact for DSPs is really, really key to this model of certification. DSPs did feel the time and effort needed to achieve certification was reasonable. All organizations were satisfied or extremely satisfied with the program. Again, around 87% reported that the implementation costs were very or somewhat reasonable. We did have one of the agencies drop out due to a lack of bandwidth. I don't think that was about their internet connection. That was about the challenge of running this program while doing all the other things you have to do to keep a provider organization operating. So as often happens, people join with the best of intentions, and then it can become a little overwhelming when you're trying to start something new in a provider organization. Of the organizations that were involved, 9 were able to pull it off. We did have one that had to drop out.
And I also don't want to minimize that there haven't been challenges with this. You know, in every state there have been unique challenges, and a lot of it is that learning curve in getting local administrators and DSPs, and to some extent the entire organization, to understand how the eBadge Academy works, how you earn badges, how the badges are connected directly to the CMS competency areas, how to infuse the code of ethics into your practice, and basically getting direct support professionals to be reflective in their work. Because one of the things that I know from being around for a long, long time is that DSPs in the United States are very, very busy. They've got complicated lives in many cases. And reflection is not something that comes naturally. And there is a fair amount of reflection required in virtually every badge in the eBadge Academy. And that learning curve can be difficult for some people who have busy lives. So there, I know in New York, and I also know in Tennessee and Georgia, that we spent a lot of time helping organizations figure out what works best for them.
And Joe, if I could just add to that, in addition to being very busy and having complex lives, they've also been doing documentation for years in most cases. And it is sort of a challenge to move from a sort of just the facts, minimalist approach to recording what has happened to a more reflective approach to writing. And we often see that in the earliest submissions in the eBadge Academy. You know, we're getting very, very short submissions, and we're having to deny those for lack of detail. We're having to write notes to the DSP, encouraging them to go into more detail, to expand on their thoughts. Typically, by the time a DSP is all the way through the process at DSP 3, the writing is becoming much, much more reflective. We see that growth.
Well, and as an eBadge reviewer, I can share my experience that I love it when a testimonial comes in, and we do not approve or deny testimonials based on the use of the King's English. I mean, bad grammar, bad punctuation, bad spelling is good, as long as it reflects your personal work. I'm happy to look past any, because my grammar and spelling and punctuation isn't good either. But those real testimonials from the hands of direct support professionals, in many cases, are just incredible. I mean, talk about outcomes. DSPs helping people achieve outcomes. And, we've got 600,000 examples of outcomes through the eBadge Academy. Sorry, I have to editorialize on every state. I'm sorry. Susan, back to you.
All right. So in Tennessee, DSPs and frontline supervisors were required to complete surveys before participating in the program and after earning certification. And Tennessee looked at these surveys to compare participants' expectations, motivations, and desired outcomes with their experience after completing the program. Overall, the responses, like you heard from Georgia and New York, showed a strong commitment to professional growth, improved quality care, and person-centered supports. And some of the key findings were that organizations, most people agreed that their organizations provided them satisfactory support and resources. They felt that their organization recognized and valued their skill building efforts. And most of the organizations saw the eBadge Academy as a clear path to higher quality support and a strong demonstration of their employees' commitment to quality. Some of the barriers that were cited are the things that you would typically see, and we've already talked about: time constraints, family obligations, job transitions, all the things that get in the way of committing time to a project like this. And some participants felt that the competency areas didn't apply to every service setting. There was comments about the curriculum being heavily focused on IDD populations, and they suggested maybe adding more emphasis on aging adults and dementia, and more badge offerings such as mental health and mental and behavioral health, employment, and enabling technology. All right, back to you, Joe.
And those are great suggestions. And yes, NADSP is focused on the IDD sector, but we are using cross-sector competency areas. And I think a long-term vision for NADSP's eBadge Academy is to expand into specialty certification areas. And that is something that we will be working on in the near future. Okay. Workforce outcomes. This is what providers want to see. What are the outcomes that these pilots demonstrated for my direct support professionals? Kathy?
Yes, definitely very significant. Before I go through what's on the PowerPoint right now, I just want to add to the conversation in regard to reflection that one thing that we have found over and over and over again is that the supports and services provided by certified team members, it's not accidental anymore. It's with intention. And that is definitely an outcome of the certification process. But to get into the details of some of the data, which again, we have always believed at NADSP, but now it really truly has been proven in New York. The turnover significantly has reduced among certified DSPs compared to non-certified peers. 11% turnover for certified versus 44% non-certified in 2022. 8% versus 38% in 2023. And I will bet everything that difference continues, if not has gotten even larger in terms of the certified people within the organization. They stay. They stay. They're not only because of the certification and the pride that they feel and the professionalism, but because of the recognition and support that the organizations that gave them this opportunity makes them feel that they want to stay with that organization. And we know that retention, let me turn that around. We know how expensive turnover is, extraordinarily expensive, and the savings there alone. But we at the NADSP really focus on the significance of retention on the people supported, that how important it is for the people supported to know who's working with them and develop those relationships. And I've shared this for many, many years because it touched me so years ago. A person receiving services who required full support in all self-care said that she had probably over 30 hands on her body over the course of a weekend, and she didn't know anyone's name. Retention is crucial. Certification absolutely supports that. Career pathways were strengthened in organizations when they voluntarily were able to give wage increases. Many organizations have career ladders, had career pathways already. They incorporated and built in the certification to those ladders and made it a part of it. And in many organizations, in addition to the bonuses, they would do wage increases with that certification and also the maintaining of that certification. And some organizations, if they didn't necessarily do a monetary increase, they gave opportunities. So a DSP3 in an organization could be on committees and have a larger voice in the committee. And we know that DSPs often don't feel heard. And the significance of that was so important. Improved competencies and cultures were reported by the organizations. And this is just amazing, these statistics. 80% saw improved staff competencies. And we know the struggle of that. 63% saw positive cultural impacts. We don't dictate the culture of an organization, but the positive impact on each individual culture was tremendous. And 79% saw positive impacts on the people receiving services. Again, how important that is. The participation in New York exceeded expectations. Failure wasn't an option, which is an inside joke, but it was, we were hoping for 2,400 certs, over 3,000, or nearly 3,000 people participating, over 3,000 certificates over the course of that period of time. But again, most importantly, the DSPs felt recognized and saw themselves as professional. Enhanced professionalism and more person-centered supports was observed. People could tell who the certified team members were without knowing who the certified team members were by how they behaved and how they presented themselves while working. There was a strong interest by the organizations in continuing in the eBadge Academy, even beyond the grant period. Definitely more than half of them want to keep going. Many of them had reached out before the program even ended because they wanted to ensure to continue to be able to do this and provide the opportunity for their team members. And high enthusiasm among the staff. And as I've said a number of times, but we appreciate the significance of this, that DSPs and frontline supervisors reported stronger professional identity and motivation to advance. I'm going to turn it over to you, Dan.
Go ahead, Dan. I'll save my comments for the end.
All right. Thanks, Kathy. Thanks, Joe. So we had 200 DSPs essentially participating, 200 seats available for DSPs in Georgia. We had 194 DSP-1 certifications issued. So 97% of DSPs who were participating in the program achieved that first level of certification. 124 went on to DSP-2. That's 62% of the 200, and 78 reached the highest level of certification, the DSP-3, 39% of the 200. When agencies were asked about retention, the responses, there was a range of responses. We had everything from, we had 65% retention of certified staff to 100% retention of certified staff. But it definitely leaned toward the higher end of that range, with about half of the agencies reporting they were over 85% retention. 78% of those who achieved DSP-1 told us in the feedback they provided they plan to remain in direct support work for over 10 years, and about another 20% plan to stay for at least 3 to 10 years. DSPs reported that they had gained important knowledge and felt more confident in their skills. Even long-tenured DSPs reported that they were growing in their knowledge and skills through this program. And some people felt like it had really allowed them to embrace their work with a new enthusiasm. Sometimes we would hear from DSPs that they were feeling a little burnt out at this point in their career, and being involved in this certification process was really a way for them to free themselves from that burnout feeling. Organizations did report to us that they would prefer clearer guidance in terms of which courses participants should take and in what order. One of the challenges we face in the eBadge Academy is it has to be something that's universally applicable across the country. We need the process to work for a DSP, working as a job coach in Alaska, and we need it to work for a DSP working an overnight shift in New York. And so we leave a lot of flexibility in the program. And while that's appreciated in some sense, we do hear from a lot of organizations, including some in Georgia, that they really would prefer to, just give me a list of what to do step by step in what order. Certainly in terms of the Relias modules, there's over 350 of those available. It doesn't matter to us which modules your DSPs take. We want you to pick the modules that are the best fit for your organization and the skills your DSPs need. But we do hear sometimes from organizations saying, just give me a list of modules. Tell me which modules to take, and we'll work our way through that list. There were also technology challenges. DSPs didn't always have easy access to technology. Sometimes there was a challenge beyond the technology of having a quiet place to work. We had DSPs trying to do this on their cell phones, which is certainly possible, but I would say not ideal. And as we work on improving our platform in the eBadge Academy, that's one of the things we're trying to address is a better experience for mobile users. That's it for me, Susan. On to you, unless Joe.
No, I'm holding off until the end, Dan.
Okay.
Okay. So the Tennessee survey results also showed a lot of encouraging workforce outcomes. DSPs consistently reported having increased knowledge and competency after participating in the program. Supervisors have observed improvements in job performance and stronger use of person-centered practices. Participants were generally retained at higher rates than the broader DSP workforce. And provider agencies viewed the eBadge Academy as an important tool for professionalizing the DSP workforce and strengthening career pathways. Some of the more significant finding, job satisfaction rose 6% after completing the program, pre-survey, post-survey. Career commitment increased by 13%, reflecting greater dedication to the profession. Turnover intentions fell by 8%, and 50% of providers reported a positive impact on retention and service quality. And this was a concluding statement in the report. The NADSP eBadge Academy program has a positive impact on workforce outcomes, especially in increasing career commitment and reducing turnover intentions. So I'll turn it back over to you, Joe.
Thanks, Susan. Before we go to future implementation, I'm not surprised by any of this. I wish I could say that I was surprised by this. A mentor of mine once said, we know what we want to say, we just got to get the data to support it. And I think that we have the data to support what we had at NADSP have thought for a long time, that credentialing and certification works. It values the profession. It shows a path forward for DSPs. It allows DSPs to share their skills and to be recognized as professionals. And ultimately, that's what we're showing here. It's showing that DSPs, given the opportunity, can lead. And that's what we had here. So last section here. Now, before we go to Kathy, I just want to make sure that I'm very clear. NADSP has no say in what these three states will do in the future. And we don't have a crystal ball either, because ARPA was a one-time, once in a generation opportunity where the administration infused $48 billion into HCBS, and states were wise to invest a lot of that money into workforce initiatives. That money is long gone, and states are facing very difficult budget years ahead. But I hope, it's my hope, that we see this as an investment that will return its value. So, Kathy, what's going on in New York with future implementation?
So, Joe, thank you. That was a great segue because funding is the primary barrier for many organizations. In regard to the certification cost, although it's been noted that that is very low, but to possibly be able to give wage increases and provide the administrative support. But as I mentioned earlier, many organizations have already made the commitment to continue doing this and have wage increases built in. They're hoping to be able to sustain that. Staffing shortages limits the times for the DSPs to complete this. This is the catch-22 that we all face because they're very, very, very busy. And because we don't have enough people, they are busier than anyone can imagine oftentimes, even though we all work in the field. So this can't be one more thing on top of it. But here at the NADSP, as many of you, we believe that the investment now, and Joe, that was the word that you just used, is critical to long-term sustainability of your workforce. So to invest now into the certification process is into the future. So we believe that to be the case. Our evaluations are showing that to be true, and it will help resolve some of the staffing issues, of course. Due to the very strong outcome of that 3-year pilot, OPWDD in partnership with NADSP, we are currently in pilot 2.0, which launched in January, and it is funded through December 31st of 2026. And I can tell you that it is going very strong and very successful. So we're very, very happy to be able to add on this other year. And as Joe said, we don't know what the future holds, but we're very, very positive. But we've mentioned this a couple of times in New York. Outside of the pilot, OPWDD has partnered with the State University of New York, the SUNY system, which, by the way, is the largest university system in the country because it includes their 2-year community college schools. They have introduced the eBadge Academy. It's a statewide micro-credential program where DSPs and frontline supervisors combining college-level coursework with the eBadge Academy, so students earn both the academic credit and the NADSP certification simultaneously. This is funded through 2028. It has been an amazing program. There's over 20 college campuses that are involved, more still coming in. And it is really just amazing to be able, it's a win-win-win because people are earning college credits. They are getting certified. Organizations get certified team members. There is money going towards this, so they have free tuition and they get bonuses. They work with the organizations. But I can tell you one of the amazing positive impacts of this program is you go to a college campus now, and they know what a DSP is. They know what the work is that is involved. The professors now understand this. The admissions officers understand what this means. So and this particular program that has already been is underway and is going beyond our current pilot is definitely an amazing aspect of the future in New York. The evaluators' observations, University of Minnesota has this statement that most organizations in the pilot in New York had not previously participated in the eBadge Academy. After engagement, 80% of leadership recognized the benefits for staff development, culture, the people they support, and the organizations expressing interest in continuing to participate. I'll consider that a mic drop. There you go, Dan.
Thanks, Kathy. In Georgia, there were organizations that found internal funding to fund ongoing salary increases or to promote staff who had earned their DSP-1 certification. Similar to New York, organizational administrators recognized the benefits for staff and the people they support when the staff were involved with the eBadge Academy. There was one of the 10 participating organizations that has independently contracted with NADSP. They are self-funding continued access to the eBadge Academy for their DSPs. Just one of the 10, but we really, really appreciate that commitment. And again, funding is key. The evaluators' observations were that additional support is needed to maintain and grow the program, including funding for staff time, incentives, and administrative costs, as well as infrastructure for enrollment management, progress tracking, and technical assistance. Susan?
All right. So Tennessee is actually 1 year into a 5-year commitment to continue their participation in the eBadge Academy. Were a few recommendations that came out of the Tennessee report. One is to use more targeted recruitment. It may be a possibility that early participants in the program, or maybe some of the folks that have a high degree of career commitment already, and that maybe future efforts should identify and recruit DSPs and FLS who are newer to the field, may be at greater risk of turnover, or maybe be less engaged in professional development opportunities. Also, an emphasis on helping providers maybe have clearer expectations, like that their participation in eBadge Academy involves a lot of transferable skills that can be used across different service sectors, like Dan mentioned before. So maybe highlighting the importance of the transferable skills to the provider organizations that maybe didn't have a clear understanding of that. And again, as mentioned before, there was a lot of expressed interest in more specialized curriculum and badge opportunities, including behavioral health, employment supports, and technology supports. And I'll turn it back over to you, Joe.
Well, thank you, Susan and Kathy and Dan. I just, in terms of future implementation, I think it's going to take a whole lot of advocacy. What I would recommend to these 3 states and any other state is to use these evaluation reports and advocate around them. Take them to your legislative or lobby days that you have every year at your state capitol when we're advocating for better wages and career ladders for direct support professionals, and use the data that supports the argument that certification and credentialing works, whether it's the eBadge Academy or something else, it doesn't matter. But one of the things that we do know is it's going to require advocacy. And organizations have connections and relationships with state legislators. It's going to happen at the state level. And partner with your state office and negotiate around what we think that would be doable in your states, and advocate like hell. Because this is an opportunity that was funded through ARPA, that was a short-term fix to a long-term problem with no long-term solutions attached to it. These reports are the long-term solutions. So I know that the very able Desiree and Nicole dropped the links in the chat for you all. Download them, bookmark them, use them. I do not have any access to Q&A, but before we go to Q&A, because we do have 2 minutes, there's our website. Go on our website, go on our YouTube channel. By the way, we just redid the Code of Ethics. We relaunched the Code of Ethics. The Code of Ethics has been revised. Know the code. And Desiree, Nicole, is there anything that we need to follow up with here, or should we say goodbye to our friends that are with us today?
We just had one, if you have 2 minutes. Most of them have been answered, but someone said, are there any objective programmatic benefits that have been identified as an outcome of these pilots beyond staff, self-report, and employee turnover?
Well, we know that people with disabilities are achieving outcomes.
Okay.
Meaningful outcomes, and a whole lot of them.
Awesome. All right. And then another comment, not a question, a statement of kudos. Brian Gelb has been outstanding in customer service, prompt responses, and professional handling of each interaction. Thank you from Alaska.
Oh, thank you. Brian Gelb is one of our staff people here, and he's incredible too.
Yeah. And then folks were asking earlier about how it was funded, how each was funded in ARPA funds.
all through the state offices, through the money that the states received through ARPA. So every state was a negotiation through, HCBS funding, and it was a negotiation between the state offices and NADSP. Every state was different.
Awesome. Thank you. And someone had asked if I believe folks will have to go to the researcher specifically, but if there were outcomes or different feedback based on the education people used, but that is a researcher's question.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we encourage you to contact, I know Julie Brzezinski may be still on the call, the researchers at ICI and at TennCare. If you have questions, use that report and reach out to them. This is just our interpretation of those evaluations. And we can only speak to the eBadge Academy. And we cherry picked, and it was not all, easygoing. There was a lot of challenges along the way, but I think ultimately direct support professionals and the people that they support benefited greatly from these 3 pilot projects. I'm confident of that.
We're at time.
We're at time. Thank you, everybody. Dan, Kathy, Susan, thank you for your expertise in your given states and your expertise in the eBadge Academy and the work that you do. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And reach out to us if you have any questions. Thanks so much.